Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome to Life, Death, the Law. I'm Shawn Garner in studio here with Adam Hansen and Jeff Cook.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming.
You bet.
Dr.
Happy,
Jeff Cook.
yeah, happy to be here.
So Jeff Cook is the owner, operator, and doctor at Cook Orthodontics, and you were born and raised in Yuma, right? Were you born here?
No, I'm happy to talk about first of all, thank you for having me come.
Okay.
I feel flattered that you'd want to hear anything I have to say.
It was Shawn's idea, but it's okay.
Thanks. I'll also say I'm happy about this particular format because of what's gone on in the world and the question of where do you turn for information, for truth.
Okay.
And
Oh, you're saying the podcast format.
the podcast format.
Okay. Right.
A long form discussion, open, trying to get to know somebody in a different way. And then having people hear whatever these ideas are, or these feelings, and listen to that person and their story. And then,
I feel like you're trying to tell me you don't want to say where you're born and raised.
no, this is leading up to that. I'm sorry. Okay. This is
a long way to say it.
Was that a touchy question?
It's just I'm expressing I'm glad that you have this as a format because it'll give me the opportunity to tell you about me
Okay.
in a way, and as opposed to
To clear your name from all those mudslingers out there. Okay.
So no, I was not born here. In fact, I was born in Provo, Utah,
Mm-hmm.
when my parents were still college students. So, and this of course was in 1970, so it was a long time ago.
Not that long. We're not that old.
Yeah, thank you. So I was at the very beginning of that relationship, really. I mean, I was born just, a year and 3 months after I got.
You're the firstborn.
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah, and a simpler time. And he was, again, still in college, and then he got accepted into dental school in Louisville, Kentucky. And so when I was 1, we drove out to Louisville, and the trip was made in a VW bus.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Twin
that was their vehicle.
That doesn't surprise me one bit because I know your dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my car seat at the time was my high chair.
Nah.
And they
The
shoved
good old days.
the high chair right between the two front seats. Yeah, so at 1 year old, there's the plate glass, which I'm sure was not shatterproof.
No.
Driving down the interstate.
Yeah.
To
From Provo to Louisville.
Provo to Louisville.
I love how you pronounced it correctly. Louisville.
Yes. Well, I spent
Well, because you went to school there.
12 years.
Yeah.
in Louisville, Kentucky.
You don't want to offend the listeners.
No.
Louisville.
Yeah, because we have a national audience, and I'm sure a lot.
Me. It's global.
We'll call this Coast to Coast. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
I made that up.
So I was born in, Zion, and then we moved the Exodus out to Louisville, and then I spent my first time through dental school with my dad. And at the end of the 4 years that he spent there, close to the end, my sister was born, Heather. And my dad went through school with the Navy.
Oh,
Mhm.
I didn't even realize that.
Mhm. And so he became then a Navy dentist after he graduated, and his first duty station was a small town in the desert Southwest. So he was stationed here in Yuma as a dentist.
Okay, so his roots, and everybody's got a story as to how they ended up here in Yuma. Usually people don't look for exotic places on the map and end up in Yuma because of that approach. They met somebody that already had roots here, or the Navy relocated them, or a job. And so your dad came here for his service because he had to serve 4 years in the Navy to pay back the dental school that they paid for. And then never left, just acquired the taste for the town. And
Well, the story continues.
Oh, okay.
Because we did leave.
Oh.
He didn't stay 4 years here. This is where Heather was born in Louisville, And then when we ended up in Yuma, of course, I was started kindergarten, and when they bought a home in the Hermosa, which is kind of by Puebla, school there. And I have good memories of that, and we had really great neighbors. And but think about Yuma back in the early 70s. There was maybe 30,000 people or so in the city. The county maybe had twice that, but simpler time. There was a Kmart, and that's about it.
Yeah.
No internet, nothing like that, and just very isolated. And that put our family, as most, what do you do during the day? You talk to people, and you go outside. So my time in Yuma when I was young was brief. We were here for 2 years. Right before my dad got stationed next, my sister Jill was born.
Okay.
And our next duty station was Okinawa, Japan.
Oh.
Mhm. So again, think about this as what was happening. My father left, and then my mother was left in Yuma to kind of finish the affairs that were needed here with me and Heather, and then Jill at 6 weeks old, and she was to make this trip to Okinawa uh, with these children in tow.
Yeah. And there's no texting, there's no cell phone. It's the
Yeah.
communication was a lot
Yeah,
more limited.
yeah, it was different. So a scary event, and she's in her 20s at the time. My mom married when she was young. My parents met when they were teenagers, really. And
Oh, in high school?
yeah, my parents met in California. And so anyway, this trip over to Okinawa, my mom made with little kids, and we spent a year in Okinawa, which was really cool. Also, brought our family together. And
You were like 5.
I was in second grade, so I was 7. Next time, 7, and Jill was a baby, and it was a neat experience. I remember Okinawa being so different. The beaches, beautiful, and I had really, really blonde hair. And
Really?
yeah, so that's good luck. So I had my head rubbed a lot.
Oh,
But look,
is it still good luck? I'll go over there.
yeah,
Charge for a head rub.
yeah. So anyway, the next duty station is San Diego, and we spent a year in San Diego, and then he had spent 4 years, and then he got accepted into his orthodontic residency back in Louisville.
Okay.
So I'm still not really in Yuma yet again.
Yeah.
Back to Louisville, and we spent 2 years there.
So now he's paid off his dental school debt, having served his 4 years in the military and the Navy, and now he's going to go back to orthodontic school. Who's going to pay for that?
That's a good question. I think at the time, they probably had some savings. The school itself, when you're in that residency, I believe they pay you a little bit.
Okay.
That wasn't the case for me. He also served in the Army National Guard, and there were other things that he did. He worked after hours at orthodontic labs, and I think might have even moonlighted as a dentist. So he scrapped there. I don't think they took out a lot of loans.
Was it a combination of the school tuition not being as high as we see today and opportunity to work at the same time and get compensation as he went through his residency, all of that culminating together? So he didn't come out of school with a debt that was worth more than a typical house.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good question too. As what's happened now with education being, that's the question. Orthodontists are graduating now, $500,000, $800,000 in debt, and but because he went through the Navy and sacrificed that, and then they worked, and my mom sold bread, and so I think they were very frugal.
I think that is such a fantastic option of going through some sort of the military to get schooling, because not only do you get a better appreciation for what's going on in the military and world affairs, you get a different perspective, but you get a realistic time frame for paying off the debt that you acquire and going through school. It's 4 years, and it's going to happen. Whereas a lot of people today, they get so much debt. An average lawyer, I think, graduates with between $150,000 and $300,000 in debt. An average dentist, I think, is much higher. It's like $300,000 and $500,000 of debt. Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's totally debilitating. You can't go out and try to buy a house and do those types of things. It's living the American dream, even though you sacrifice 8-12 years in getting this education and investing in yourself to actually apply your skill. And so the debt and education issue is a whole nother discussion, but I'm interested to hear where you went from there as far as getting involved in going to school and coming back and settling back in Yuma.
Mhm. Well, so at the end of that 2 years there, then my brother Zach was born.
Mhm.
And so he was born in Louisville, and then they have a decision to make where to set up. Would they stay in Louisville? He looked at going to Utah, but after discussion, the decision was need to come back to Yuma.
So Yuma planted enough of a seed in him. You were here for only 2 years, right? The initial stint. That that was the opportunity. Was it because the lack of professionals, and then therefore the opportunity as a new professional to come out and set up shop and have a good potential to build up your business? Do you think that was a lure, or was it the 120-degree summer?
I think it was the community. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think it was the opportunity. I mean, he was going to be successful wherever he wanted to go. I think he and my mom made the decision based on where do I want to raise my family. And so that's what they decided to do, come back to Yuma. And again, at the time, as I guess, trying to paint the picture for some of the things to talk about, um, the interest rates to buy a home in the early 80s were like 17%.
Yeah.
Imagine buying a home basically feeling like you got to put it on a credit card.
Yep.
And start a business. So my father moved to Yuma in 1981 and started a de novo practice. Just opened the door and said, "Here I am," and would see at first, of course, like 3 people a day or 4 people a day, and now I see 40 or 50 or even 60 people
Really?
a day. Sure, so I'm standing on those shoulders, but that's how that was built.
So my son just had his braces taken off last week.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's
It really changes, especially for a teenager. It helps them with their confidence and all of that. And it's fun because they like the orthodontist. They don't like the dentist so much. Nobody likes the dentist. But the orthodontist, they like, because you're not imposing pain on them at the moment. Yeah, the braces hurt over the long period, and then they come out and they got beautiful teeth.
Yeah.
And that I don't know what is better to create confidence than a glowing smile.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been an awesome career for me, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do until I was almost done with college,
Mm.
actually, to show you really what impression Yuma left on me, even as a kid. When I was here, I would see the airplanes fly by. And of course, in the 70s, there were the F4 and the A4. And it was just, that's cool. And even when I went to Japan, I would see the blackbird, and it's
Really?
up in the sky, seeing, it's something that a seed was planted very young.
Did you have the posters on your wall?
I did. I had posters, and I just was always looking up. So when I grew up here, again, I came back, and I was, by the time my dad got out of school, I was basically in junior high.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, I want to fly. And so that was my goal and design, my aim at that time. And I even went through officer candidate school for the Marine Corps and did some real planning in that regard. So I was,
At what point in your life did you go through that officer candidate school?
well, let's kind of back that
Okay.
up.
I think we have to take a break,
Yeah.
right? And we're going to come back and we're going to pick up where we left off. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this.
Hey, Yuma, Dave Ramsey here. If you listen to our show or know anything about us, then you know I only recommend products and services I trust and I believe in. That's why when it comes to protecting your assets and planning for your loved one's future, you've got to call my friends Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen at the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen. I encourage you to take the first step and attend a free, no-pressure seminar and learn all of your options. The firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen has been educating the Yuma community for over 40 years, and this is the only area of law that they practice. Shawn and Adam believe in giving free education to help people make smart decisions about their assets and help them leave a legacy for their family that they can be proud of. Schedule a free personal consultation today. Call 783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Law. I'm attorney Adam Hansen. We've got Shawn. We've got Dr. Cook with us, and Jeff Cook, our good friend. We can call you a good friend, right? We're more than Facebook friends.
Absolutely.
A little bit more.
Indeed.
Not,
Yes.
best friends, but we're pretty good friends.
We're working on it.
Yeah. But Jeff has an interesting story. You were talking in the last segment about how you spent some time here as a little boy, moved away for most of the growing up years, and came back. Your parents, who is also a dentist, paved the road for you. And you were just picking up about how your love for flight came to be. You saw these huge planes flying off the Marine Corps here.
Yeah.
Airbase.
So when I came back to Yuma, I was like, this is what I think I want to do.
Yeah.
And so a year or two after we got back here to Yuma, the last child was born. That's Jake. And at that time, we noticed there was kind of something wrong with Zach. He was missing developmental milestones. He was not communicating. And certainly by the time my mom was pregnant with Jake, she was like, there's something going on here. And again, this is the early 80s. So information about what things.
When she went on WebMD to figure out what was going on.
Exactly. That's right. I said, yeah. And there are not a lot of resources available. So, just did your best. Of course, by the time my brothers were 3 or 4 or 5, it was obvious that both of them had something wrong, that they were going to be special needs. And so what do you do with that? So they did reach out. They went to San Diego and talked with people, and there were a couple of diagnoses made that were not correct, of doing the best they can. But the prognosis for my brothers both was pretty dire. It was to be a lot of intense care for the rest of their life, for whatever life they would have left. And there was even fear of, these children just don't live that long.
Wow.
So yeah, that was the home that I grew up in. By the time I was basically almost a teenager when all this was happening.
And did that take a lot of your parents' attention away from you and Jill? And because they had their hands full with Zach and Jake.
Looking, I didn't feel that. I felt like we as a family came together to manage this dynamic. And it was like having 2 little Tasmanian devils, they would get into everything and eat anything. And we had, my parents bought little animals like rabbits and chicks and ducks and stuff like that. And to help my brothers learn about life and how to take care and be gentle. And they were not gentle. And, not a ton of those died of old age. But we had little chicks, and you'd watch Zach, kind of pet the chick, and then all of a sudden the chick's head would start poking at her softer. So there are lots of fun stories about that. It's a real trial having them. But I do feel like it did bring our family closer together in that regard.
Isn't that interesting? How the trials that we have actually end up being the things that help us develop the most.
For sure. It's definitely a make or break thing where a lot of couples that will have a special needs child, it can really bond you together or be something that can take it apart. But fortunately our home was built by my parents, who are amazing and awesome. And my mom started, actually, my parents bought a small bakery in the 80s for my dad's dad, who came back to Yuma. And so mostly muffins was just a little hole in the wall off of 4th Avenue and 12th Street or something like that back then. And then she grew that into 2 locations, and it was really successful for our family. We had lots of muffins for years and years, and frozen yogurt and stuff like that. It was really
Interesting side note is that the first time I saw my to-be wife, she was wearing a mostly muffin shirt, and that stuck in my brain. I always saw, I met her, we spent some time together for a period of 2 days, and then I left on a mission for my church for 2 years, and I remember her as a mostly muffins girl. So you worked at your parents?
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So did my wife.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, her teenage years were formed by mostly muffins. And I think she's a baker now. She's a professional baker now, and a lot of that had to do with mostly muffins.
And I think that
No kidding.
that testifies to exactly what you said about your parents coming to Yuma because of community. Like, this community is pretty amazing at shaping individuals. If you allow it. I mean, if you look for handouts and life just to be laid out for you on a red carpet, it's not going to happen. But it is a great opportunity to build character, and there are some wonderful people here.
Yeah, I agree.
I had a question. So you said you're the oldest. So when Zach and Jake came along, usually the oldest has a propensity to be the protector of those that are younger for whatever reason. That's what I've noticed as I look at families and I see the oldest in their family, they tend to watch over the other chicks of the family. Is that kind of how you felt about Zach and Jake? And even today, I mean, they're still thriving today.
Yeah, very, very much so. I'm very protective of them, and at the time, certainly seeing these little kids that it does something to your home when you see someone that is suffering and struggling in that way, and it's every day and it's all day. And so, yeah, I was very and very, but there was a reverse to that too, because they, my brothers are huge now. They're big and strong, and so in a lot of ways they have been counselors and protectors for me also in going places. And although that can be a little bit of a challenge going places with them, sometimes they're hard to manage, but it's fun too. And
It's funny you say that because for years we would go, they are in love with my wife. And so we would take them to the movies. That's one of their favorite things to do. And I am not a touchy person. I hate touching. I hate being touched most of the time. And that's all Zach can do. So he's he's in my face, on my ears and all that stuff. And it was really good for me to have to just kind of just take it, Just like that little chick, you just take it. And he's not soft most of the time.
no, they have sensory needs.
Yes,
And when they were really little, they would try to pull your ear off your head, so they don't do that anymore. But yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize all the connections that we had.
Yeah, we do. We used to. Yeah.
Interesting.
I say we used to because once our kids got to a certain age, it was difficult with time. But yeah, we would go to movies probably weekly, or at least once a month with Jake
Yeah.
and Zach.
So anyway, I don't know if this is boring or not, but that was my home. That's how I grew up. And then when I left home, I actually got married really young, and then
How old were you? What is young?
18.
Oh,
That is young. And then I like I said, I went to AWC for 2 years. I went to NAU for a year.
I didn't realize that. So we're AWC alumni.
Yes.
Yo, Toro.
This was a great, I left home and I was responsible for life at a young age, and I worked at the Yuma Daily Sun as a bundle dropper.
Oh yeah, that's some real work.
That is, yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what that is.
Okay, so I did that and other work here, putting myself through school, and I valued my education a lot because I was paying for it.
Yeah.
And
And AWC is fortunately affordable enough
mhm.
that it's realistic that you can afford the school, but at the same time, it is real money that you're paying.
Well, yeah, and so I didn't come out of that part of my education with any debt, but it was a good foundation and taught me how to study and work. And
So both undergrad and I mean, and then undergrad at NAU, you didn't have any debt
no.
because you worked and combined it with scholarships.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I got out of college really without any debt. I went to NAU for a year, and then after that, that's during that one of those summers is when I went to officer candidate school because I thought this is what I want to do. And then
What branch of the military?
OCS is with the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And I had a contract for aviation. That's why I was wanting to do that because they said, okay, as long as you go through this pipeline, then you'll at least fly. And there's no guarantee of what you'll fly, but there'll be an opportunity for you to do that.
Okay.
And by the time I got through that first summer and I came home, I started to reevaluate really what I wanted to do with my life and made some changes and realized that's when the Gulf War broke out in 91. And I was like, wow, these guys actually, this isn't just a game.
They die.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a fear for myself. It was, um, what is this machine? And do I want to be a part of it?
Okay.
And I obviously have great respect for that. But for me, I wasn't sure if I had the constitution and I wanted to have a family.
Was it that? So it wasn't a fear for you, but as you were going to be used as a tool of death.
Maybe that was it, and like I said, the Marines are hard chargers and devil dogs, and I love that, and there would have been a place for me there, but it would have changed who I was becoming, I think, and I just decided, although I had seen successful homes and families, I didn't want to roll the dice on a military career that was going to take me away from it at times. And so it was a difficult life, one that I didn't sign up for. I'm grateful for those that do that, but for me it was a decision making time.
And you didn't even, did you have kids at the time?
No.
So you're thinking in advance, which I think is rare for young males to think what type of career is going to present the best family life without even having kids, because kids, they change, your whole perspective on life.
Yeah.
But and I know my wife, she was thinking about that constantly. She was dreaming about, her wedding day from the time she was probably 6 years old. I never thought 1 minute about it. And I certainly didn't think about what career is going to provide me the best, family life until I actually had a child, and then my whole paradigm shift occurred.
Yeah. Well, so I guess looking back, I didn't want to be an orthodontist. I'm so grateful that that's the direction that I went, but I for myself wanted to do aviation. But I'm glad that I made the decisions I made, and then after that, of course, I actually did go to BYU in Utah for a year or so, and then that's when I got into dental school in Louisville, Kentucky, and went back.
So you did your associate's degree at AWC, put in a year at NAU, and then finished off your undergraduate at BYU, got accepted at Louisville Dental School, graduated high enough up in your class, because for those of you that don't know this, you don't get to just choose to be an orthodontist. It's a very selective process where you have to graduate high enough up in your class and then apply for the orthodontics programs, and they select out of the top applicants, and it's you probably got to be up in the top 5, otherwise you don't really have a hope.
That's probably true.
Okay.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah.
Going in.
I don't think a lot of people know that. People think I'll be an orthodontist, and as long as I put in the hard work and grit, we'll do it. But it is a very difficult process, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it is. It is what it is. So, and you were able to, have the brain power and the work ethic to do it.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that's kind to say. I feel lucky. I had a good foundation, and yeah, had I known going in what I had to do, I might have not had the confidence that I'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Fortunately, we don't in a lot of things in life. What it actually is going to take to succeed, how hard it's going to be.
yeah,
And that is actually the reason that I invited you on the show. And usually I start with this, but I'm really impressed with your lifestyle and your success story, because in Yuma, you're a pillar of the community and that you've put on braces for thousands of kids. And you have demonstrated that you can work hard and have a life that provides a good home life and also provides good financial support. But it looks like it's easy. You make it look easy, and I want to get the real raw details of it. Is it easy? Is it as easy as you make it look?
Trick question.
I guess you got to take a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about that, and we'll get your answer on that. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this.
Are your affairs in order, or do you think your affairs are in order? I'm attorney Adam Hansen. Now is the time to stop procrastinating. In fact, we have a seminar coming up on December 6th at 2:30 in the afternoon at the Foothills Library. My partner, Shawn, Garner, and I will be sharing with you what you need to know to get your affairs in order, or what you need to know to update that planning. Time is of the essence. Stop procrastinating. We'll see you at the Foothills Library.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back. This is Life, Death, and Law. We've got Dr. Cook with us today, and Shawn as well. And we've been talking to Dr. Cook about his life, really, and what made him who he is. He's told us a little bit about his story, his love for aviation, and how he wanted to be so bad in a plane for the Marine Corps, but it just was not going to be right for him, and he changed that, and he ended up being an orthodontist, which my kids have all used you. I think we've got 4, two right now that are still using you, and we're still paying you off, but that's okay. No, that's all right. You gotta do what you gotta do. But Jeff was telling us about his path of getting to where he is now, and Shawn made a comment of how loved he is in the community. For all these years, he's been helping us families make our kids look nice with their teeth. And in addition to that, doing all that, he's got all these side hustles. I don't even call them side hustles. They're things you do, right, Jeff? You never stopped doing the aviation thing. Instead, you decided, I'm just going to do it myself. I don't need the military to do this, right?
yep, that's right. Well, I was, I guess, again, flattered that you would say I made it look, especially because you and I have spent some personal time together, and certainly there have been some difficult things in everyone's life. But to answer the question,
So your life hasn't been a bullet journey.
no, but I will say that the ability that I've had is based on the support that I've had. I have a great surrounding community, family, friends, and people that I work with. It's all been helped me buoy me up and give me the opportunity. So I don't necessarily feel it has come from within, but I've been really lucky.
Because talking about some of your side hustles, you do your orthodontist practice. You've got 2 locations. You've got one, I don't know if we call it the Foothills, but it's right across from Gila Ridge High School. And then the other one is in Tuscany Plaza, right there off of Avenue B behind Walmart and Yuma Catholic. And so you've got those 2 locations that you run. You work on average 3.5 days a week, but you're able to have enough time and excess cash flow because of the way you manage things that you're able to invest in real estate development, and you've got your own airplane and you can fly around. These are things that Adam and I dream about, and we work really hard, and I go home exhausted every day, and I feel like, oh, well, that's still just as far away as it was yesterday.
Yeah. I think it was about maybe 10 or so years ago that I shifted my schedule to where I just started not taking more money, but taking more time. And so I do take a lot of time off. And, they say on your deathbed, you won't wish you worked more. And, I could make more money, but I don't because I make more time or have more time to do other things. And
But it seems like the way that you've rounded out your life, the money just seems to, from an outsider's perspective, just work out for you. And is that because, do you feel it's because you make that conscious effort, and it's a very proactive effort to have a well-rounded life? Then your business, when you concentrate on it, you do well instead of just going through the motions and performing the drudgery.
yeah, so let me just say again, I've been really lucky. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Some of my success has just come from luck and timing with I worked on developing Tuscany Plaza years and years ago, and that could have gone terribly, but it went really well. And I didn't have anything to do with the world economy or my partners, or really, it was just I was fortunate to have that work out for me, and that gave me some opportunities. And I think when you drop newspapers at 3 a.m., you learn and you feel how important it is to save and really look, so I think I haven't been real extravagant. I've been pretty cautious with my money
Yeah.
over the year. I drive uh, an F-150 truck. It's only my second vehicle.
Yeah, but it's not a
5 years.
it's right, it's not a 2025 F-150 that has got all the bells and whistles, the lariat with the leather and
No, it's got cloth seats that are ripping, and I drove the first one into the ground, and I'm going to drive this one too. So I think that combined with having a good example of hard work I was implying with my parents, my mom baking bread, and my dad, who is in his mid to late 70s now, still getting up every day and going to work and working hard.
and if you don't know John Cook,
My dad.
yeah, your dad, this guy, just envision RFK.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's a really good.
Every time I see RFK, I think you're your dad.
That's pretty good.
Because yeah, they work their tails off.
Yeah.
They feel like health is a critical aspect to having a good quality of life, and they practice what they preach. And your parents are the owners of the complex, formerly World Gym, and they go there and they're trainers there, and they could probably outcycle 95% of us that are even the 20-year-olds.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, my mom's 75, my dad's 77, and so, if you think about the trajectory of their life, they worked and worked, went through school, served in the military, came back, set up a practice, set up a bakery, worked, and then recognized, I think, um, how important fitness is as they became rolling into their 50s. And that's when my dad got more and more into fitness and opened that fitness center. And that's been their life. I worked with my dad as a partner for about 12 years or so. When I came back, we worked together. And then he just was done and has spent every day, all day doing the fitness center.
Well, I'll tell you a little tidbit that I don't know if I've ever spoken out loud to you, but when I came to Yuma and I was dating Brittany, my wife, she, we knew your family, and your dad was in the process of purchasing the World Gym franchise, and then actually building the building. And I thought, that is amazing. That is a type of like family I would love to become, I'd love to emulate. And so, my viewpoint's never changed. So I've looked at that, and just it's the individuals within the community that work hard to contribute to these businesses that not only help the community and the services they provide, but provide employment opportunities and show that you can build from the ground up. And a lot of people might look at your family and think that it was all handed to you. And that's what I wanted you to describe here, is that it wasn't a lot handed to you. You were fortunate in some of the decisions that you made, but how does the saying go that luck favors the bold? But I think it's luck favors those who persevere and work hard. And you do that. And also you're very keen and you're analytical. So you look at all the options, you look at the pros and cons, you look before you leap type of thing. We've had several sessions where you come to me with complex legal issues, whether it's your business or otherwise, and I sit down and I give it my best shot, and then you say, well, what about this option? And I'm like, well, why don't we just start with that? Because it's so much better. And so, yes, I suppose luck has something to do with it, but it's the fact that you do your homework that actually makes the luck happen.
Yeah. Well, and I was given everything from my parents. And by that, I mean what you've talked about. They really didn't give me financial help much. It was example. And I think that's what has made all the difference.
Comment a little bit more on that. As a parent, you see your kids out there now in life and trying to be an adult and take on responsibilities. They have to learn their own way of providing for themselves. They grew up in a very financially stable situation, and so it's easy to take for granted money. Have you been successful in passing on the lessons of life, that the value of a productive family that is financially stable is not having money, but the ability to earn money?
Yeah. No, I think I failed at that.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think growing up, we didn't. This will sound strange, maybe, but we didn't really have a lot.
Really?
My father was a doctor, but not until I was a teenager, and so really I was only at home for about 4 or 5 years while he was. And again, at the very beginning, there was not a lot. He was not wildly financially successful.
And the public perception is otherwise. They'll see if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, you have a license to print money, and you're not entangled with the financial pressures that everybody else has. And that's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Zach and Jake out of all us,
It was a huge, there wasn't what happened in my home later on with, going on trips. We never went anywhere. We never did any big trips or anything like that. Not that I felt neglected in any way. But it was a relatively humble home. It was, 2,200 feet. We didn't even have a garage. We just had a carport, which is great and fine, it was fine. But that's not what, by the time my children were here, I was established. And, my oldest son, I have 4 children. My oldest was born while still in school, but the others didn't really see the same struggle. And so I think as a parent, I was more excited to do and to give.
Yes.
That's not to say that I failed miserably. I mean, I made them do things. They did have chores. They were Eagle Scouts. They served in church, and they were responsible. But I think maybe they saw things come too easily, or just assumed that this is how the world will be.
Yes.
And
If I just get up in the morning,
everything.
then things will happen.
would you find that if they asked for something, you'd be quick to, yeah, I need these Nikes for, basketball this season. Yeah.
Not
I'll
as
go
much
get
at
one.
first, but as things evolved, and it's like, well, yeah, let's do that. And I gave my kids opportunities to travel and to have access to music and education that were unusual and wonderful for them. And I thought, well, this is going to be really good for them. And I don't know what much I would there were things I would do differently, I suppose, but it was just the environment they were raised in that and maybe as to your point, it looked easier than it was to get there. And so there have been some hardships as they have launched. And, I got them all suitcases for their 18th birthday. And as they've launched,
I love it.
there's been,
It's not only practical, but there's some there's an undertone there. Yeah.
and so they've had their own struggles, like, oh, okay, and I watch them go and struggle and get really skinny and struggle. So they're learning, but it's different now.
Is it tempting to step in?
Not really.
Really?
No, I mean,
Because as a kid, you want to.
I know I want.
That's
The hardest thing as a parent.
to not just give
Fix
them
it
what
for
they
you.
want. Yes,
To fix it.
intervene.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're just a horrible person.
yes, I have that inclination.
We're about a decade behind you as far as our family development go and where our families are. So that's why I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, what is the next step? Because your kids are out there in the world making it. I'm struggling not to give my kids everything that they want. And what advice would you give us?
I mean, wake them up, make them work. Don't give them everything.
Literally wake them up like 6 a.m. or give them a wake up call in life. Is that metaphorically or
Literally.
literally?
Of course, your kids are probably going to seminary, and that does wake them up. But yeah,
So for our listeners, seminary is early morning church class.
yeah,
Wakes them up.
Yes, they get there.
Molly comes rolling around. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Just hitting Molly. She doesn't listen to this, so doesn't.
It's tough. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know if I have the right answer, other than taking things away and living super humbly, which is hard to do.
What things would you take away? Is there certain aspects like screen time?
Shawn wants the answer.
Your answer?
He needs to know.
Yeah, screen time.
Uh-huh.
Following through.
What type of apps should they not have access to?
Yeah. Yeah, social media. I was very fortunate. My kids were not involved in social media at all, but I think that can be really problematic, and
It's
comparative.
it feels like it is creating a society of anxious and depressed individuals when not only is it addictive, but it's addicted and so detrimental
Yeah.
in a way that is practically imperceivable in how that would be, because drugs certainly
Yeah.
they're addictive and they're detrimental, but we know that, right? And gambling or pornography or sex and things like that, but on your phone, that it just seems so so innocent,
Yeah.
and yet I think the impact is very pervasive
Pernicious.
and can be very bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'd pull it all. I don't know how old you'd want your kids to even have access to that, but so I don't know. Good luck to you. I mean, I thought I did the best that I could.
Shawn wants it laid out. He's expecting you to outline.
Yeah. It's
Thing is your family, Shawn. Jeff can't tell you how to do your family. Each kid is different. Each one of his kids are different.
That's true.
And you can't. I think you're looking for a formulaic idea. I'm talking to you and chastising you. Like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I think what I often find is that my oldest son has a complete different personality than the next one down. I could beat the heck out of the second one, and he just gets up and smiles. Like it does not affect him. But if I were to do something like if I put him down, he's in the dumps for a week.
Your oldest?
My second oldest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they're just different personalities, different ways to deal with them. And I say that because I think what we do at life at our firm, we try to build a structure that's very formulaic, that is efficient, and there's a formula to this whole thing. And if it's not working, we tweak the formula. And I wish I could apply that to my family, to my kids. Like, here's my formula, and it fits everybody. But unfortunately, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen in your practice. Your practice is like really an example of efficiency, because you're able to work 3.5 days a week and accomplish more than most people could if they had a 10-day work week. And because you put in those protocols that make it efficient, how do we apply that to our family? Because that's what it really matters. And so what nugget? I need something. I need some pearl of wisdom.
Well, it's going to sound very, I guess, pedantic, but I appreciate that comment, because that's the truth. Everybody's different. There's not going to be a formula. As people, I love Excel spreadsheets and the whole organization, and this is the formula, this is the diagnosis and treatment plan, but it's all different. And I hate to beat up my kids too much with that, because they're going to be okay. But I think they're going to be okay because now I'm able to have more open conversations with them. I've been able to talk to them about really what has gone behind the scenes, and you don't really know until you're experiencing it how how things are going to impact you and how you're feeling and what life really means to you. So the underpinning is the answer that you already know, and that is obviously just to love them and give them respect and make sure that they feel like no matter what they're doing, whatever happens, that you are there for them regardless, good or bad, the decisions that they make. And I think maybe I've been able to share with them some of my own faults and some of my own failures in a way that when they're 12 or 15, they couldn't hear. But now in their 20s, with their own experiences and making their own mistakes and having the opportunity to talk to them about that and sharing my own with them, they're going to be okay. I don't know if I really could have changed it a whole lot because I did want to go do fun things with them. I did fun things with them. So I don't know if I regret it, but I do feel like they didn't have the same formula that I did.
Yeah,
They didn't.
you didn't. For me, I wasn't able to implement the protocol that made the practice successful in my family. By the time I got home, I was too tired. We got to take a break, but I want to come back and talk about this a little bit more.
Sure.
So this is life, death, and the law. I know we might be out of time, but I'd like to have it for the podcast at least, and we can section out the best parts.
Yeah,
for the
I think
show.
what you're really describing is perfectionism, and I think that idea of perfectionism that we as husband and wife try to project onto our kids, and they see we're living this life.
Well, let's
Kind of
like you back and
like a
discuss
play,
this.
right? Sure.
Welcome back. This is Life, Death, and the Law. I'm looking for the answer to the question of how to make children successful. And that is my question. How do I make my children successful like we've made our law practice successful, like Jeff Cook has made his orthodontist practices successful? And Adam, you were explaining that in the break.
I think what you're explaining, Jeff, what I hear you to say is we as parents, we often will put on a show. So what the kids see is what we want them to see, when in reality behind it, there's a lot going on that might be deep
To
vicious.
society, to the outside society.
I think it's a projection. I think we, in our society, maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's, I don't know where it's derived from. Maybe it's the, like the Downton Abbey English, whatever. We're perfect out here, but behind the scenes, there's no way that we are perfect. And I think we as parents fall into a trap to that, in the sense that we try to project to our kids, I don't know if it's strength or security or whatever, that everything's okay. And in reality, there's some real issues happening when we could probably bring them into that. And I think maybe you do that in your own way with your own kids at a certain level, with maybe like a family council. This is what's actually going on. This is why I've been really on your case, because actually I've got this going on in my life. If a kid were to hear that, maybe that would change the dynamic between you yelling at them, trying to get them to do their chores, and now they're understanding, oh, it's not dad yelling at me because he hates me. It's dad yelling at me because something's actually going on and it's hurting him. And now I understand that. What can I do to help dad?
Yeah.
I can do my chore. I don't know if that would actually play out like that, but I feel like if you're more honest, if you're more honest about it, is what I hear you say. Maybe you weren't saying that, but I that's what I was hearing you to say, is maybe you could have been, as a dad, a little bit more honest with some stuff. Maybe not everything, but
You want
to show that I am a human and I feel. And this is what I'm feeling, and I'm hurting, or I'm really happy because you did this.
Well, there's a tightrope you got to walk as a parent between sheltering them from reality and giving them enough of a dose of it that that they can understand that it's not easy and it's not given. They are going to have to work. Life is going to be difficult. And so when those difficulties come, they don't feel like, whoa, what's going on? My reality is spinning out of control. Like, no, you should have expected that.
Yep. Yeah.
And you can work through it.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that. Was a good comment again. That's how that is how
I get that a lot.
Yes, indeed. I was faking it.
And I think we fake it not only, so the obvious faking is to the outside world, right? We want the society to perceive our family as everything going great. And I've got this weird glitch that I feel very, very inauthentic and almost like I'm deceptive if people perceive that about me because it's not true. And I want to be authentic. I want to say, listen, I've got issues. No matter how it might look and how easy it might look now, it was super hard and it still is hard and I don't have the answers and I'm working really hard to do it. I do put in a lot of time and effort and my mental stamina goes into making sure that the firm works out well. But then I go home and I'm tired. And I think I let up on my self-control as far as making sure that that same level of organization applies in the family. And that's where my failure is. And I'm realizing as I'm speaking it out loud that I need to bring that same level of A game to my family life as I do to my firm life.
I like that. Well, yeah, but you can only run so fast, and so that's why
I'm going to just stop working so much.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at, which sounds odd, but once I made that switch with my schedule, actually the truth is my income didn't change.
Isn't that and
It didn't.
and I know that about you.
In
Yeah.
fact, it helped because I had time.
Isn't that interesting?
It's
And do you think that God had a role in that too?
sure. Yeah, I mean,
Because not only maybe the blessings that you receive from doing the right thing, but that he says, focus on your family. Things will be okay. And even if the income would have went down, that's probably a trade-off you would have accepted.
for sure. Yeah.
But it didn't. And that is because just from an outsider's point of view, I perceive that you are 100% there at work because you know your work time is limited and you have the energy for it because you're not there all the time.
Yeah. And when you have time off, you can think about things that make sense to implement or to change and make it more
Because
efficient.
you're not in the trenches all the time. You can be more like a general where you step back and see the bigger picture.
Well, like I said, I've been fortunate. So,
Yeah. Well, I think what you have done can be replicated. And I want the formula. So maybe after the show, you can write that down for me.
okay, I'll be my best. I'll be my best.
Any last words for the listeners?
Well, no, like I said, as I started, I think this is the right format for discussion because I know really today the expectation perhaps is that we would talk about political things. I'm just was kind of tired of that, and I'm happy to come back and do that. But I want to know the person before I know what they're saying. And I think maybe this is an opportunity to get to know a person so that you'll listen to what they have to say about other things.
That's interesting that you'd say that because the whole reason that we put on this show 10 years ago when we paid for this hour advertisement on the radio, it was simply to discuss why everybody should come in and pay us money to draft a trust for them. And we talk about trusts and estate planning issues almost every episode. Then we got tired of that. And we started talking about issues that were more important to the community, more important to us individually. And we found that individuals would come to us and they would feel that instant rapport because we shared similar ideals. And once the ideals are there, then the professional aspect, that can be accomplished and they can see whether or not for themselves it's there and it exists. But I think people want to work with other like-minded people. And if their values are the same, then that's what we want to accomplish. And whether or not we're like-minded, I know we've alienated a lot of people because of this show, because we speak very frankly about what we believe and what we think. And there is a right and there is a wrong. Not everybody's beliefs are correct. You don't get to develop your own sense of morality and right and wrong. But
But some issues I feel like they're moldable. And sometimes I agree with something you say and sometimes I don't and vice versa. So there are some issues that are, they're flexible.
But just pointing to what you said, Jeff, like you wanted to get to know us before we talk about any politics because you want the audience to know you before. Who cares about your politics unless they know who you are?
Exactly.
But yeah, we'd like individuals to know that we are interested in people having successful lives in the community. We help them organize their finances, but that is really kind of after the fact. We get often asked the question, how can I draft this trust that will help my kids be responsible with the money they inherit? I can't do that.
Right.
If you haven't instilled into them the character and the financial responsibility to inherit the money that they're going to receive, it's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
I can only structure how it can get to them in a way that will minimize the government intervention and the bureaucracy that goes into the transition of estates from one person to the next. And so that's why we want to focus on the family values, the community values, this good citizen values that contribute to individuals. And then the other things are details.
Right. Well said. I think that's it.
So I hear you to say you're coming back,
I'd love to come back.
and then we'll talk the nitty gritty politics or whatever you want.
Yes.
We'll get you all riled up
Yeah.
with the good stuff.
Very good. Well, this is Life, Death, and the Law, and we'll talk to you next week.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.
Are your affairs in order, or do you think your affairs are in order? I'm attorney Adam Hansen. Now is the time to stop procrastinating. In fact, we have a seminar coming up on December 6th at 2:30 in the afternoon at the Foothills Library. My partner, Shawn Garner, and I will be sharing with you what you need to know to get your affairs in order, or what you need to know to update that planning. Time is of the essence. Stop procrastinating. We'll see you at the Foothills Library.